Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Shop with Russ. This is Season 1, Episode 2. I'm really glad you joined us tonight. Thank you, everybody who is on the panel. I really appreciate it. Got a lot of things to talk about. This tonight's show is going to be on bandsaws, and we'll get to them in just a minute. I have my two behind me, and we'll talk about them. But let's first start off with going down the line, and I'll go from left to right for me. And I hope that I have been broadcasting myself the whole time. I've been known not to do that, trust me. So we'll go from left to right and introduce yourself. Tell us where you can find you. Do kind of like a short introduction so we can get going because we have a lot to cover tonight. We'll start off with Mr. Chris Cute. And for some reason, every time you're on my show, you're first.
Well, I don't know what to say about that, Russ, except thank you. I'm Chris Cute. You can find me on YouTube under Chris. The last name's Cute, and Russ, for some reason, seems to get a kick out of my last name every time I say it. So, Russ, if you have something to say it now.
I ain't gonna mess with you all the time. Hold on.
All right, buddy. Hey, if you go to Chris Cute, we're working on YouTube, and if you look down in the descriptions, you'll find the rest of my social links. So, but there you go.
All right, next on the list is Dave Gatton.
Hi everybody, I'm Dave Gatton. You can find me on YouTube under Dave Gatton, and you can find me on Facebook under Dave Gatton Sidewinder CNC, and you can also find me on Twitter.
Mr. John Cousins.
Hey, John Cousins here up in Grand Prairie, Alberta. You can find me on Facebook under John P.A. Cousins or on my Facebook page, Would If I Could Scroll Saw.
Would if I could. I don't have a lot of room in here. I've got some stuff behind the laptop here on the stand, and then my bandsaws are poking me in the back. So, yeah, I'm trying to see. I got this little area set up right in here for shows and my lighting, so I have to be in this area to do the show. So, Mr. John Schaffner, go ahead and introduce yourself.
That would be me, John Schaffner, Syracuse area in Central New York. You can find me on Facebook under my name, and to date I have yet to post a YouTube video. So hopefully by the end of the season.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. You keep on saying it.
I know it's one of those things. I get around to it.
And then next in line is Nick Ferry.
You can find me on YouTube if you just search Nick Ferry, as in the boat, not the tooth fairy, and or just nickferry.com for all my woodworking-related content.
Thank you there. Mr. Russ Meadows, I had the name first, so.
He had the name second. I had the name first. I'm older than him.
Oh.
Yeah, Rusty Nail Woodworks is where you find me on Facebook, or Russ Meadows on Facebook, either one.
And then Mr. Sterling Marlin.
Sterling Davis on Facebook, and you're thinking about the race.
No, I'm thinking about the race. You're not on NASCAR, so it's Sterling Davis. Sorry about that.
Sterling Davis on YouTube and Sterling's Woodcraft on Facebook, and I do the Twitter thing and the Instagram all under Sterling Davis. Just woodworker hobbyist, enjoy doing crafts and woodworking.
I think Nick fell off his stool over there. He's laughing so hard when I called him Sterling Marlin. So
I've been called a lot worse.
I think I had NASCAR on the brain. So okay, I've got a lot to talk about. I have a little show on that I put on YouTube, or a video that I put on YouTube explaining a few things. But when I first started out, I was going to do shop videos, and I was going to call it Let's Talk Shop with Russ. Well, lo and behold, now I'm doing my own live shows, and I'm going to use that format, Let's Talk Shop with Russ, for this show. And I changed the other format for the Shop Talk for my Simply Wooden Creations to SWC, which stands for Simply Wooden Creations. what did I call it? I don't even remember now. It's tools, something and other nonsense. Yeah, it's updates, tools, and nonsense. That's what it's called. So that's changed that part just for a little bit. The next thing I got to talk about real quick to bring up tonight is we're starting something that I think is going to be very unique and very exciting here on this channel that live. What it's going to be is at least once a month on the live show, we're going to have a contest kind of like game. And what I'm going to do is during the show, there's going to be something that either it could be the question might be, what was tonight's show on, like bandsaws for tonight, or it might be, like I said in the video, there's a drill sitting here, or what color is my bandsaw? There'll be a question, and it will be in the comments just below the video where I put comments down there for my show and the web, how you can get to my website and everything. There'll be that question, like, what color was my bandsaw on the show tonight? All you have to do is in the comment section below the video is put green. Bandsaw's green. You will have until midnight Sunday night. So for instance, this is the 12th. You will have till midnight Sunday night the 13th to make that comment. The cutoff time is after midnight. And if you make that comment, I will take everybody's name, put them in the pot, so to speak, pull somebody's name out, and you will win a gift card of $25.
Right. So red wouldn't qualify?
No, red wouldn't.
Well, you have a red bandsaw sitting there.
Well, what I'm going to do, I'll make sure that there's only one object of what I'm talking about on the contest night. So, yeah, but that's all you have to do to enter. Now, I'm not going to pre-announce when the contest is going to be. In order for you to find out about the contest, you have to watch my shows. Because I may announce it in the beginning of the show. I may announce it in the middle of the show. I may announce it at the end of the show. Somewhere in that show, I will come up. I'm going to say, tonight's contest question is, and I'll give it to you. And all you have to do is, after the show's over, I will post the contest question down there below. You put the answer in the contest. I'll go through, pick your name out, and you'll win a $25 gift card. I'm going to try to do it with, I think the best thing to do for me is to try to do it like a Visa or a MasterCard gift card, because if I do a Home Depot gift card, those people living outside the United States, and I want this open to everybody, any viewers that's going to watch me outside the United States, I want them to be able to participate, and I think a Visa gift card would be the best for them to get, and they can order whatever they want online, and they can include the shipping in that. And also, the reason I'm leaving it open, I want it to be for only the people on the live show and people that are watching the live show. That's the reason I'm closing at midnight Sunday night. But why I'm leaving it open till midnight Sunday night is a lot of people that are over in the United Kingdom and Europe and over there, they're not going to be able to watch the show until tomorrow. Actually, they're asleep right now. They don't even know the show's going on. So they'll be able to get up and watch the show and then have plenty of time to participate in the contest. So that's the reason I'm leaving it open until midnight Sunday night. Like I said, I'm not going to tell anybody when the contest is going to be. It'll just be boom, because there's going to be a contest tonight. You look for the question, put the answer in, and there you go. Next thing I want to bring up is the Scroll Saw Artist Contest. I'm starting that this year also. It's going to be between October 1st and October 31st, and you will have, it's not for designs, it's for scrolling only. So what you will do is, I'm going to make it Halloween themed. You need to make something Halloween, like a pumpkin, a skeleton, like a back ear, anything you want, any kind of anything you want to scroll that's Halloween themed. You can enter in the contest. You have to do a video on it. All that information will be coming out later on. It's not going to start till October 1st. So by the 28th, I will actually have a list of the rules, how to enter, where to enter, and everything that goes on about that by the 28th of September. So look for that. That's also coming up. A lot of things, a lot of exciting things happen here at Simply Wooden Creations. I'm really happy and really I really think I'm going to have a bang for the end of the year. So I believe that's all that I have for the shopping update, so I can shut my mouth for a minute. And I'm going to take this off of stop presenting. Anybody have any questions that are on the panel that you might think that somebody else might have to ask me?
Well, yeah, because the shirt you're wearing right now and the Halloween thing that you're doing kind of reminds me that you're dressed up like a pumpkin tonight. Is that?
Yes, I am dressed up like a pumpkin.
I think the scroll saw thing is a great idea. I'm all over that. That's a great idea.
The reason I did this, and I hope I'm not presenting myself so it'll go out to everybody. The reason I did that is because, Sterling, you have the pallet upcycle challenge. Ryan has the 2 before challenge and the birdhouse, and then Shauna, what is his name? Shauna, there's a whirligig contest. What's his name?
Let's see.
Yeah, he has the whirligig contest, but I mean, it's there. I mean, we can enter I entered the 2 before contest as a scroller and scrolled my little thing. I don't have it near me, but there's nothing out there specifically for the scroll saw artist. So that's the reason I did this. I think that we get kind of left out, and I really want everybody. Now, one of the things I have told, it's inside the USA only for right now, and I'm hoping between now and the 28th, that enough of my sponsors, I'm really pushing everybody that I talk to, can you give me a gift card or something like that, or if it's patterns, can you make it available online so I can give it away so that people overseas can have it too? That's really, I have a lot of people that email me and ask me questions and stuff about scroll saw, and they're from outside the US of A, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Germany, Mexico. Those are all some of the people that email me and ask me questions. So I really feel bad that I can't open it up, but I'm funding this thing 100% out of my pocket for right now. So I'm having to rely on the sponsors. So I'm hoping that they will go along with this gift card or give away things online where I can give it to other people. Anybody else? Any other questions? Oh, you're all silent on me right now, huh? Nick, do we have anything over there on YouTube?
Not as of right now. Just a couple people put in their green, so apparently they're entered into your what color your bandsaw.
It's not tonight. I'm not going to have the contest tonight. I'm not going to do that on purpose. Okay? I want to catch y'all when you least expect it. So you have to watch my show to win. I mean, you know? All right. So that being said, I'm going to present myself to everyone. If y'all want to say anything, please interrupt me. Before I get started, one of the other things I want to do is if you're capable of having live video feed from your shop, I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that in my shop. I really would like for you to let me know. I want you to be on my show, and I want you to do, like if you want to do your table saw or your router table or your drill press table, whatever you have or lathe in your shop that you can do a live performance like I'm going to do tonight on your lathe or whatever, I really would like for you to come forward. I'm doing this tonight, and my first couple of shows has been about me, and I don't want this to be all about me. I want to have other people on my show that I can basically say, hey, Sterling, have the show for the rest of the night, show us what you got, and you sit there and you do your stuff in your shop and show us what you got. So people, if you want to do that, PM me on Facebook, send me an email to russclarity@simplywoodencreations.com. Or on Facebook, contact me, PM me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter under Russ Clarity at Simwood Creations. But send me information. I would really like people to step forward and do their own thing on there, and so you don't always be looking at me. I know I'm beautiful, and I know you love the beard, but I know after a while you get tired of looking at me.
We can't compete with Charles.
Yeah, Charles is the only one that gets my kisses.
Well, thank God for that.
Okay. That being said, let's get down to what we're talking about. I brought this out. I bought this just to have. I have two separate shops. One in here that's heated in AC. It's a little bit smaller. It's about 28 by 32. And then I have the big shop out there. Well, I say big, but it's about 14 by 38. This is heated and AC'd in here, so this is where I do predominant my work, especially this time of the year. You sweat your butt off trying to be out there. So that's only got fans. But I bought this to keep in here, so when I'm doing scroll work and stuff and I needed to do a little bit of cutting, I could just reach up, turn it on. It's hooked to a vacuum system. It comes on and do, if I need to take an inch off of something, boom, I'm here and I'm back on my scroll saw, I'm doing it. That being said, I brought this up just to point out, even your small band saws, see if I can tilt this down a little bit, even your small band saws are almost identical to your large band saws. They still have the wheels, rubber lined, the blade, they still have guides. Now when I originally bought this, your guides that go up here that run keep your blade aligned, these were steel guides. Steel guides on a steel bandsaw blade, that's not smart thinking, engineer. I don't know who you were, but I guess it's because it's such a cheap saw. So I replaced them with some cool blocks. I bought some cool blocks and put on it just as an upgrade. But other than that, it's pretty much the blade tensioning is the same as the big. The table tilts as the big saw. It even, I like this part, is it has a tensioner that I can let go and go back on that my big saw doesn't have. I have to tension it on and on by hand. So it's basically the same as a big saw. Works real great. It doesn't cut very well as far as, it's great for, as far as resawing, forget it. You're not going to resaw anything on the saw. As far as cutting some wood up, slicing it up to make it a little bit smaller or taking an inch off or something here or there, it works great for that, and that's what I purchased it for. That being said, I'm going to shove it over here out of the way. And we're going to talk about the big saw. It's a Harbor Freight, guys. Got it for a heck of a deal. It was on sale for like $289. I had another coupon because I'm one of their Harbor Freight members, and I got 20% off. I ended up paying like $189 for this table or this bandsaw. Time it was all said and done, so it has worked great for me. The biggest update that I put on it to date is this Craig bandsaw fence. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. It has made a big difference in the way that how fast I'm able to sit up and cut. Because I just had a regular old fence that I had made with a long clamp and put on here, and it really was a pain in the butt. All right, let's get down to, let me bring out my little cheat sheet here. If you're going to resaw, depending on the size of the saw you want, we'll talk about blades real quick. Half inch is more than enough for resaw on your average bandsaw. This is a 14-inch bandsaw, Harbor Freight. Half-inch blade will resaws oak, cherry, walnut, babinga. Now the problem with exotic woods is I don't care what kind of blade you use, it's going to dull the blade fairly fast when you're starting to deal with exotics. You need a carbide tip blade. The blade that I like, to my choice, is a half inch, 3 teeth per inch for resawing, and it's a wood slicer blade that comes from, I'm trying to think of the name of the company. Who?
Highland Woodworking.
Highland Woodworking. Thank you, Chris. I knew I kept you around for some reason. But Highland Woodworking, yes. So let's go right into the setup. Now, the first thing is there's a lot of controversy. I do not, and the people that I've talked to at some of these wood shows and wood clinics do not leave tension on my blade. A lot of people do. They say, bull, it won't hurt anything. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it won't. But bear with me one thing and think about this. You have a rubber tire, okay? Rubber can and will carry a memory. You keep tension on this rubber tire long enough and let it sit long enough in one position, and I guarantee you that it's going to get a little flat spots in it. Okay, so do what you want to on yours. I release the tension with mine. Now I don't back it all the way off, because if I did, then I might lose it, and I have to reset everything. I only set the saw. I have to set the saw up very occasionally and check it to make sure it's set right. Other than that, I don't have to mess with it. All I do on this saw is resaw. That's all I do. So make sure, or I make sure that I untension the blade every time when I get through with it, and leave just enough to keep it in place, and then retension it back. Anybody got any comments on the panel? Do y'all think that's a good idea, or nay, or yay, or?
Have you ever tried any type of like urethane wheels? I mean, you just stuck with the rubber wheels that came with it?
I stuck with the rubber wheels, and I'll tell you why. I have learned a lot from Alex Snodgrass from Carter Industries. He does bandsaw clinics and stuff at some of the woodworking shows, and I've seen him. I've talked to him, and I've emailed. We've corresponded through emails. And so, therefore, if the rubber goes bad, then yes, I'm going to replace it with urethane, because urethane is supposed to be better. But if you're going to replace the wheels thinking urethane will do anything better for your cuts or anything else, you're wrong. The rubber's just as good. If you have to replace them, the only thing is the rubber doesn't, or the urethane doesn't retain a memory, from what I understand, and that works a little bit better. As far as grip or any of that other stuff, no, they're both the same. It just don't retain the memory as far as the rubber does. So.
We do have a comment by Donald in the comment section about, and I actually know a little bit about this, because he goes, I was a meat cutter for 20 years, so he says he's scared that he'll have a flashback and start hosing off his bandsaw if he gets one. Bandsaws are stainless steel, and meat departments, they literally hose them off.
Oh, yes. They're all stainless steel.
Yeah, and I mean, they have steel motors and everything, and I just thought that was funny. Yeah. Yeah, if you're hosing stuff off in your wood shop, I'd be worried too.
And those don't have rubber at all on them. It's the blade on steel on the wheel. There's no rubber at all.
Yes, yes. The reason they put rubber on this is just so due to the fact that it helps two things. It helps in the grip, and it also helps to keep from dulling your blade so bad. The metal on metal contact would actually damage your blade, so that's the reason they put rubber on them, to try to do that. So, all right, placement of the blade. And I want to talk about that before I release the blade and actually take it off. The wheel is crowned, not unlike the crown on this tube. Your wheel is crowned, or convexed, so to speak. So, therefore, when you're putting your blade and tensioning your blade, getting it lined up on your wheel, you want, this is my representation of the blade, you want the deepest part of the gullet, okay, at the top of the crown of the wheel. So basically you're going to want it to look, when you put that blade on, if I can get it where you can see it, the teeth would just barely, barely, barely stick over the edge of the center, okay? You want those, you don't want the bandsaw blade out like here, because the teeth are out in the wind. They're not being supported. You don't want them back here. You want the deepest part of the gullet right on the crown of that wheel. Now, if you look, if you can see I don't know if you can see very well, but that's where I have mine right there. On mine, my adjustment to get it to that position is over here. So I would turn this and adjust it until I get that blade into the center of the wheel, at the crown, so that these gullets are sitting in the crown, and the teeth would just barely, barely be protruding over it. That would support it. Now, that is one of the reasons right there, one of the main reasons, or one of the three reasons, I would say, that you're not going to get a straight cut in resawing is if you don't have that in the proper position. Now, that being said, in order to set this thing up properly, and I know everybody's going to go, no, say it ain't so, you must, or you need to, remove the table. Because you cannot get there are actually two sets of rollers on this, top and bottom, and they must be aligned in order to get that set right. All right, so let's go ahead and tighten the wheel back up. Now I want to bring this wheel up to tension that I normally set it at. Now there's a little guide over here on my saw, right here, and it's got 1/2 inch, actually 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, all the way up. I don't go by that. The bandsaw blade is capable of taking a heck of a lot more tension on it. And how you like my, by the way, so I pointed out how you like my handy dandy little handle I put on here to put tension on it. I'm a short little guy, so it's really hard for me to reach it. You know, Santa Claus is short and fat, so. Now, I'm at the 1/2 inch mark right now, but I take my blade all the way up to 3/4. This bandsaw blade can take a heck of a lot more tension than what you give it credit for. And I go by being it set is by the feel of it. You do not want this thing to move. Well, just lost y'all guys. Every time my laptop's a touch screen, every time I touch the screen it does something. You do not want this to move more than 1/8 of an inch from side to side when it's under tension. I have mine where it moves less than 1/16 of an inch. That's how much tension I put on it.
How much perpendicular pressure, though? I mean, if you put 100 pounds of pressure perpendicular to the blade, I'm sure it'll flex a little bit more, but how much pressure are you putting against the blade?
When I'm doing this, very minute, just tapping it. I'm just going to tap it. And they say 1/8, Alex Snodgrass says 1/8 of an inch. Mine's less than a 1/6 or a 1/16. You really can't go by ping. I tried that like you can on a scroll saw with the blade. So you want about it. I get mine about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, once I've got it set up for that part, I want to release all my rollers, back them all off, away from the blade. And something we were talking about cool blocks or guide blocks. This originally came with guide blocks, not rollers. I bought these and put this on it, so it is an upgrade. These are actually guide blocks that it came with. You can buy these. They're like I want to call them a fiberglass resin type block. The upgrade to these would be online. Google Cool Blocks, and they're supposed to be an upgrade to these regular blocks. They're supposed to help it a lot better, keep the blade cooler. I just have a problem with, number one, this rubbing against the blade. There's more surface area. I think the less surface area you can have touching the blade, the better. Number two, the rollers turn with it rather than rub against it. So I changed those out. Automatically, a lot of your saws are cheap. Your inexpensive saws. I don't want to say cheap. Yeah, inexpensive.
Well, the cool blocks, Russ. I think I think if you run those cool blocks on the blade, they're going to actually wear your blade out faster. But and I have rollers like you do too. But my question is, won't the saw blade dull before the cool blocks ever wear out the bandsaw blade?
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean,
I'm thinking it will because I've dulled some bandsaw blades before.
I don't know if it will or not. I just know that I ran this thing with the cool blocks when I want to call them cool blocks because cool blocks is a specific name for a type of
right.
block.
Russ, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the comment section, they're saying they can't hear you. You're breaking up quite a bit.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's a distance from your microphone or what it is.
All right. I'll try to get closer.
All right.
We can snuggle a little bit better. All right. So cool blocks is an actual name of guide blocks, so to speak. But I mean, if you think about it, in your car engine, everything has bearings on it, so to speak, for a reason. I just have a hard time thinking about this. And if you take and put it up with your blade and rub it up and down, it's not smooth. It's not smooth at all. So.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Russ. I'm asking a question. I was just wondering.
I don't know the answer to that because I never used these long enough to tell if I would wear the blade out first or if it caused that. I immediately changed them off because of watching different people talk about upgrading to the rollers instead, and I love the rollers. It made a big difference in my cutting and how this thing could resaw. For this being a cheap saw, it made a big difference in it being able to resaw.
Well, that makes a difference. I just want to make sure that there were guys that weren't watching that felt they had to upgrade to something they really didn't have to if they had a saw or a blade.
The difference in after I set it up and then changed to the rollers was night and day for me in resawing.
Okay, well there you go.
I can resaw 12 inches with this saw and 1/8 of an inch, and it'd be right on the money.
I was thinking that the blocks that come on those things are made out of softer material than the actual blade. So I was always thinking that the blocks are the part that wears down, and you have to keep moving them in.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you brought it up. You are right, Dave. The blocks do wear, and you do have to readjust them from time to time. With my saw, so that is a difference between those, which would make it to me more of a pain in the butt. And I do believe it's a softer material. With my saw, once I get it set up, I don't really, like I said, bring almost all the tension off of it just to keep it just a little snug on the wheel. The reason being is because I don't want it to move because I don't want to reset the thing. Technically, you're not. If you got it set up right, I'm gonna have to turn on my AC. It's killing me in here. It's starting to get hot. Technically, if you got it set up right, you should be able to get the tension off of it. But I don't know if that's true or not. I don't mess with mine. I just back it almost off, just enough to keep the tension on. It'll keep the blade on the wheel, and I leave it like that. Then when I go to use it the next time, I tension it back down.
Well, you said you run the 1/2-inch blade at 3/4 on your.
I run a half. This is the 1/2-inch blade. That's all I use for resawing is 1/2-inch blade.
Yeah, but I'm saying when you put the tension on it, you're going all the way up to 3/4.
Yes.
So when you back it off, what typically do you go down to?
I would say I don't go down to a spot. I go down to a spot where I can feel that the blade is pretty well lost its tension, where I can wiggle it, but yet it still has grip on the wheel.
Gotcha.
I just start backing off and feeling the blade, and as soon as I can feel it, like I've got some good wiggle in it, but it's still capable of moving the wheel, I'll stop.
Hey, Russ, you know what I use for my blocks?
What's that?
Wooden dowels.
Wooden dowels. Okay. Hey, I would almost be willing to bet it would work.
Did anybody mention as far as whether it's bearings or cool blocks, the placement as far as like so that they're not placed over the set of the teeth, it's more towards the back of the gullet?
Well, yes, and I will get to that right now. Either whether you're setting your blades or your rollers on your blade or the guide blocks on your blade, you want them to be set. Let me pull my handy dandy. You want it to be set 1/16 of an inch behind the gullet, the deepest part of the gullet. In other words, your blade and your guide block is going to sit back. Sorry. 1/16 of an inch behind the deepest part of your gullet is where you want. Your blade or your guide block, that's where they should be set. Okay. Go ahead, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I was going to say, because if you set them forward, it will actually dull your blade.
Yeah, well, it will come in contact with the gullet in front of the teeth of the blade. Yes, you do not want that. You want it just back behind the gullet, just the 1/16 of an inch behind the gullet.
Right.
But I mean, not only dull it, but I mean, being there's a set to the teeth and they actually have they're offset. If you have that block it's going to take that set out of the teeth, and then you're going to end up with a flat blade where
Right. Each tooth
with
is
blade-
staggered.
You
One
know,
tooth will be staggered to the left. One tooth will be staggered to the right, just a tiny bit to make the cut. And actually, the third tooth I think is straight, so that it will clear the sawdust out of the cut that you're making. Anybody else? What did you say, Chris?
I just said, but what Nick was saying is just it's the whole thing about if you set them too far forward, it'll pull its teeth in line, and then what you're going to end up having is a lot of blade drift because of that. Because the blade will start drifting on you if you do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we've got this done, and I've got my saw, and then I want to make sure that my blade is sitting exactly where I want it to be. And actually, it's not. I've moved it, so I've got to move it back.
While we're waiting, Dan wants to know how much space should there be between the blade and the guide blocks?
So close that they don't touch.
So close that they don't touch.
Well, no, the rule of thumb that I had that I learned, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it's how I've done my thing. Is if I can put a piece of if you got playing cards. If you take a playing card and you can put your playing card between the block and the blade, you've got it at the right measurement. I don't know what the thickness of a playing card is or what the deal is, but that is about how far it should go. And that's how I was taught.
Right. I'm going to say it would be in the thousandths of an inch. If you're going to eyeball it, just put them so close that yet they do not touch the blade. In other words, you can rotate the blade and you can see it and you can hear it, that it will not make a noise that it doesn't touch the blade. I don't deal with guide blocks. I just go by the rule of thumb, just so close that it doesn't touch.
Yeah, the important part about setting, I think the important part about setting your blocks is though you got to make sure your blade is tensioned to the point where you know you're going to be using the saw, and it's going to be tensioned. It's going to be tensioned to the point where you know what the give and take is going to be on that blade, and then you can set your guide blocks or your bearings into that tension, and then leave them there, and then.
Right. Okay, once we've got that set, so I want to say one of the three things will cause your saw not to cut right is not having the blade aligned on the wheel properly. So we went over that. The next most important thing is this rear bearing. Okay, you want to bring that rear bearing up to the saw, the bandsaw blade. I don't know if there's somebody making some noise here. I'll go through and mute. You want to bring that up to the bandsaw, but you want it approximately 1/16 of an inch behind the blade. 1/16 of an inch. So I'm just going to eyeball this. And how I'm going to know if it is, I'll just turn my blade.
While you're doing that, Joseph Poindexter wanted to know what's the best blade brand.
The wood slicer is all I use. And that's a brand. It's wood slicer by, who did you say it was, Chris?
It's Highland Woodworking, I believe, makes that. But
Yeah, Highland Woodworking. I'm sorry, I got so many things going on. It's hard for me to.
Well, it really depends on what you want to do. There are carbide blades out there that are carbide tipped, but if you get those blades, you got to understand the kerf that they cut is going to be a little bit thicker than what like a wood slicer blade that you're talking about that came from Highland Woodworking. They're gonna have a thicker kerf, when they cut. And so, but you know what? I've heard they are. I have never used one, guys, but I've heard that they are the bomb. That they will cut through friggin' anything. It's a consideration. I mean, if you're going to have an assortment, then have an assortment. But just understand what each blade's going to do when you use it.
Yes, I do not. I tried. I was really upset because I really love the wood slasher blades. All right, let me see if I've got this set right. Now, what you want to do is once you get them where you think you've got them set right, to where they are not moving, you want to take your finger and just put a little bit of pressure on it, just a minute amount of pressure, pushing back and turning your wheel. And you should be able to just barely touch this and push it back. That is the second thing that will stop your saw from cutting a knife straight, is that this does not want to be up against or pushing the bandsaw blade forward. Because what will happen is when you start cutting, if it's pushing the bandsaw blade forward, the bandsaw blade is going to go left or right. It's going to be pushing the blade. Rather than the blade giving that little bit of give to the back to the roller, so it's not in spring tension mode forward, it's actually bending just a slight bit back to the back roller. So that's the reason you want it 1/16 of an inch behind the blade, just to the point that you can turn the blade, but yet if I just put the slightest amount of pressure on this blade, both the top and the bottom one, I'm going to go right here in the middle, they'll start turning.
And Russ, to the point, to the side bearings, making sure it's as tight as you want it to be to when you're cutting. The same thing with centering your blade. Make sure it's centered to where you want it to be before you tension the back one, because if you don't recenter it, you wasted your time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you've got it set, which I pre-did before I started doing this, I make sure that the blade is set with the deepest part of the gullet at the crown along the here. That's exactly where this is set right now. Okay, once you set that and got the tension on it, that determines where the blade is going to be now, and then you set everything corresponding to that. So the first thing you want to do, get the tension on the blade, and get the blade, set it on the wheel with the deepest part of the gullet in the center of at the crown. Then you go to the back one, and you bring the back one, it needs to be 1/16 of an inch behind the blade. Now once we get that set, now we're ready to do basically the same thing on the two side bearings. All I want to do is bring these in to where they're just not touching. In other words, where it won't move as long as the blade a little too close. Good. Same thing on this one. I bring it in and back it off to the point that I can move my blade now.
Joseph in the comment section is asking if there's any bandsaw blades that are super thin, like scroll saw blades. And by thin, I'm thinking thickness, but he might be talking, like 1/8 inch bandsaw blades as well. So
now you're talking about thickness as far as thickness of the blade or width of the blade.
Well, he said thickness, but I think that we could explore both that on the topic, whether it's the depth of the blade, the width, or the thickness as well.
I don't know that. I think different manufacturers might have difference in thicknesses as far as the thickness, as far as the width. You can get bandsaw blades all the way down to 1/8, and then it goes to 1/4, then you go half. They even make some I found in 5/8, then it goes to 3/4, then it goes to 1 inch. So you can go all the way down to 1/8 of an inch bandsaw blade. I can get them for this saw right here. And my saw blades are 105. I have it written up here so I don't forget, are 105 inches. So you can find bandsaw blades all the way down to 1/8 of an inch. Now, as far as thickness, I'm just going to go out there on a wild whim and say that I don't think that is as important as I'm sure that manufactured, like for instance, this wood slicer blade might be a little thicker or thinner than Harbor Freight blades or Craftsman blades or any of the other blades out there on the DeWalt blades. I'm sure there's a difference.
I think the thickness that you're talking about right now, Russ, is what, if that's the aspect that he's asking, Nick, is that the thickness of the actual blade is he's wondering if there's a thinner blade that will give you a thinner kerf, kind of like you have a thin kerf for a saw blade. Is there one for a bandsaw? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that one is different from the other. I really don't. Other than the carbide tip blades, I don't think there's a different blade. I really don't.
The difference that I think that would be that big is the teeth per inch. In other words, on a resaw blade, you only want 3 TPI, teeth per inch. Okay. You can buy blades that have a higher teeth per inch count. In other words, would have 8 or 10 teeth per inch, which would allow for a smoother cut. And those blades naturally are going to have a smaller kerf than the resaw blades. Okay, so that would make a difference on how thick the blade would actually cut. As far as this thickness of a blade, I don't know that there's a lot of difference between the 1/4 inch and the 1/8 inch. I think they all kind of hold to a standard as far as this thickness. I think where the difference is the kerf of the blade, and the more TPI, the more teeth per inch, is actually going to make a smaller kerf and give you a smaller cut. Resaw blades are like 3 TPI for a reason. Number one, they want to cut, but yet they need to get rid of that sawdust in the cut while they're cutting. So you don't want a lot of teeth.
I think like blade manufacturers, you'd be talking, if it's carbide tipped, obviously it's going to have a larger kerf. Or if the blade manufacturer, the set of the actual blade is further, then you're going to have a wider kerf. But to answer this question, I don't think blade manufacturers put a thickness of the metal of the spine of the blade ever.
No, no. I don't think this thickness back here, which is what we're talking about now, I don't think the thickness of the blade this way, I think they all pretty well have the same kind of tolerance, so to speak.
Yeah, Russ, your microphone, I think for most of us, is still cutting out quite a bit. I don't know.
Well, it might be because has it gotten worse since I turned the air conditioner on?
I think it's just distance from the microphones. What it is.
Okay, it might be. I'll snuggle up to you a little more. Okay, now I'm going to set the same thing on this. I'm going to set these bottom ones.
While you're doing that, Russ, also when you do buy a bandsaw, the first thing you need to do is buy you a bandsaw blade. Don't really, I mean, the bandsaw blade that comes with it will work, but those are from the manufacturer and they're pressed steel. It's not a high quality blade. You're buying a bandsaw. The blade is not going to be the best quality that you would get if you went out to Highland Woodworking or wherever to get a blade.
Yes. Okay. Now, that being said, I have this set up now so that this bearing up here is not touching. This bearing up here is not touching unless I put just the slightest amount of pressure to it. Then they both start moving. The same being said with these bearings here. Well, I said that and I moved it, and this one started moving on me.
Somebody had said, Russ, can you move the camera a little bit more closer to one side so we can see your face and your settings more?
See my what?
I'm guessing so that what you're doing is more centered in the screen.
Centered like this. It's hard. Trust me, guys. It's hard to do when you're trying to explain something and try to be in this picture at the same time. But anyway, I've got it. Now, what you should be able to do is the same thing with the back bearing. You should be able to apply just the slightest amount of pressure to the blade, and these rollers start to move. The top ones and the bottom ones the same way. If you've got that all set up, then pretty much you are good to go as far as that goes. But basically, that's all. When
you're rolling that blade, Russ, and you've got You've got your bearings all set up and or your blocks, whatever, and you're not touching the blade. Those bearings are not rolling. But when you just barely tap them, the bearings will start to kick into gear.
Yes. When you either put back a slightest amount of backward pressure on this thing, they should move. And this one is actually starting to move a little bit. Hey, don't jump into this. If you've got a project and you need your bandsaw, do not try this unless you've got a while to do this. This is a painstaking setup. I don't jump into this. I take a couple of hours to go through, set this thing up, get it cleaned up, and get it ready. I do this probably. I don't want to say once a month. I don't do enough resawing to do it once a month. It may be every 2 or 3 months. So take your time when you're doing this, because this means the difference between setting your saw up right, having nice straight cuts, and not having nice straight cuts. And then you're going to get frustrated, and then you're going to get aggravated because you can't make those cuts. So take your time and get it set up. And then, like I said, you want this to be able to just a slight amount of tension, or if I touch this, my side bearings will start to move. Or if I touch it this way, the side bearings will start to move. Pretty well ready to get it set up.
I think if somebody's new to a bandsaw as well, like, they should play around with feed rates. I mean, versus, like, if you're doing like a select pine, you're obviously going to be able to whiz through this a whole lot quicker. It clears the gullet a lot quicker. But versus, say, like a rock maple or even just, walnut or cherry.
Yes, the harder woods will take. The feed rate is definitely different. That's another thing when you're cutting something. Make sure that your feed rate stays continuous. I know you're doing it by hand, so it's not like a machine that can do like 3 feet per second or whatever, or 3 millimeters per second, some rate. You're having to feed it by hand, but you don't want to push real hard and then push real soft, real hard and then real soft. You want a continuous feed rate as you're feeding that wood into the blade constantly.
Because I was just going to say, I always think of it like if somebody holds a belt taut and somebody pushes on the edge of it, you would think you see the belt wander. So if your feed rate's too high, your belt or your blade in this instance is going to want to wander. I mean, it has much on a heavy lateral force. It doesn't necessarily flex back. It wants to bow out of the way. And that a lot of times causes inaccurate cuts if the feed rate's too high.
Yep. So that's the 3 things, and I'm going to reiterate them one more time. The 3 things that will keep you from cutting straight are, number 1, the placement of the blade, where it's at on the wheel. Number 2, this guide in the back, it cannot push the blade. It needs to be a little flex for the blade need to be able to come back to it. Now, it's there for support. Once the blade starts cutting, it is going to move back, and it's going to get on this bearing. That's what it's for, to support it. But you don't want the bearing already pushing the blade before the blade even starts cutting, because that will cause the blade to want to turn left or turn right. The next thing that's most important is the tension. Make sure you have good tension on your blade. These side bearings play a key in keeping the blade straight when you're trying to make the cut. But if they're not near as important as the tension, where the blade is on the wheel, and this guide bearing in the back. Those 3 are the most important. These side bearings, what they do is you're starting to cut, and if the blade wants to move to the left or the right, they keep it in a straight position. They're all working together, but the 3 most important things is tension, blade placement on the wheel, and this back bearing. Those are the keys to making straight, nice cuts. Once you've got all this set up, I just want to point out something real quick on my Harbor Freight. This is naturally the dust port that came with it, but what I was having was a lot of problems down here with the dust collecting in the base of the saw. So what I did was, this is not from Harbor Freight. I bought this actual port here, cut a hole in the side, and installed this in the side of my door right here, which actually sucks the dust out as it comes down and falls through here out of this. Because I was having a lot of problem with the dust collecting down in here I mean, big time clicking down in here, even with this sitting up here on the blade. So this is something that I put in on my own, and it made a big difference as far as that keeping the dust out of the bottom of the saw. But once you have that put back on, or once you have that done, all your blade and kitchen and everything right, then you're ready to put your table back on.
Russ, while you're doing that too, 3 keys is point on, but like Nick was saying too, that feed rate is also a big key in that. It's no different than like a scroll saw, and the bandsaw to me is like a big scroll saw, just a continuous cut. If your feed rate, if you're pushing it too hard, just like Nick said, that blade either way, either on a scroll saw or a bandsaw, is going to wander. It's going to weave left or right. So let the blade do what it's supposed to do, cut. Just gradually put it in there and let the blade do the cutting and guide it consecutively, consistently, like you said, but not forcing it.
Yeah, you don't want to get into a forcing situation because then you're not going to get the correct cut. And you're right, it's almost identical to the feed rate on a scroll saw. On a scroll saw, if you push it too hard, you're not going to cut a straight line. A lot of this comes from what we're doing here, and what you're doing in your wood shop. I got some ice back on. What we're doing here, it comes from a lot of practice and doing this kind of stuff every day. I mean, you're not going to get proficient on a scroll saw if you go out there and cut 2 or 3 times and wait a month and go back out there and cut 2 or 3 times more. You need to actually be on it and stay on it in order for you to get proficient in what you're doing. The same with a bandsaw. If I come out here and do 1 resaw and then come back 3 or 4 weeks and do that resaw, I'm not going to be as efficient as I would if I do it all the time, or I have done it over the years, so to speak. I've used a bandsaw for years, and I had a lot of problems with my bandsaw and setting it up and getting it to cut right. As soon as I seen one of some of these woodworking shows and they showed me this technique that I use today, it changed everything. I mean, I was like, holy crap. I have been doing this thing the whole wrong way for so long, and even though I've been a woodworker for years, I never ceases to amaze me how much I can learn from somebody else or from going to some of these woodworking shows, or now that we have the great and fantastic YouTube doing shows like this tonight, like Nick's show, all the other people that put YouTube videos out on woodworking. What a better place to go to learn how to do woodworking, sitting in your own room, on your own computer, and the guy's right there in front of you telling you how to do it. It's fantastic.
I got a question.
I always thought like the fundamentals of understanding what a blade does, whether it's a table saw blade, a jigsaw blade, a scroll saw blade, or anything like that. I always think that understanding what a blade does, like that the hook just shaving actual particles off of the wood, and then the gullet storing it until it's through the wood, and then it can expel whatever it shaved off. I think understanding that does a lot for a woodworker, because if you mentioned teeth per inch before, if you're too high on a teeth per inch, versus and then understanding the fibers of wood versus like a rip cut where you're going to get a lot of pearls, versus a cross cut where you're shearing off essentially fibers of the wood to where they're going to be not curls, they're going to be small little chunks. And people understanding that, to where like a feed rate on a cross cut would be a little bit different than a feed rate on a rip versus oak versus this. I think understanding what a blade really does helps a lot.
Yeah, it does. And as we're talking about that, and I know we don't have much time left, Russ, but can we talk about how people can actually hurt themselves on a bandsaw or do something that will make it to pop the blade, or because I've seen some accidents where people have done some things on a bandsaw that have actually thrown the blade off of the bandsaw. And, you know, God love the makers because they've made them really safe. And it's really hard to get hurt on a bandsaw, but, you know, it will scare the crap out of you if it happens.
Yeah, I think if you've got it properly tensioned and you're not forcing, I mean, if you're going to force the thing, put it into a precarious position where the blade's going to get in a bind or whatever, you're going to get yourself hurt. But that being said, it's not any different than using your table saw. If you try to take a piece of wood and hand, let's say I want a tapered leg, but yet I'm going to take that piece of wood, draw a line on it, and hand take it and put it on my table saw and push it down that line to make a tapered leg. You're asking for problems. Without a jig to hold that thing firmly into position, it can get kicked back, it can hurt you, it can snap your fingers over the blade. So the bandsaw is no different than that. A lot of people do bandsaw boxes. The problem I see with them trying to do, now they do make blades all the way down to 1/8 of an inch. The smallest blade I've ever used has been 1/4. I've never tried an 1/8. But that being said, you still are limited to, it will not cut a tight turn like a scroll saw will. Okay? So what you have to do is what we call relief cuts. Like if I wanted to make a circle cut, I can go in so far, back out, and then make several cuts into that circle, providing relief for that blade to turn inside that circle, and then come back and make smaller cuts inside that circle to work my way around. Because this is, I don't know what the diameter, a 1/2-inch blade, I don't have a chart in front of me, and I'm not that proficient to tell you that, but the 1/2-inch blade or a 1/4-inch blade or even an 1/8-inch blade has a tolerance as far as the biggest circle it can cut. Let's say the 1/2-inch can cut like a 6-inch circle. Now, don't quote me on this, and then a 1/4-inch could probably cut a 3-inch circle, and an 1/8-inch cut a 2-inch circle. So the blades have their limitation as to what kind of a circle or how hard you can put them into the wood to make that turn, because of just the way they're designed and how large they are. But this, to me, the bandsaw, it's a lot scarier than it actually needs to be. It really, I mean, it's fairly safe saw. The table saw scares the crap out of me a lot more than this bandsaw.
Well, Russ, too, one thing we hadn't touched on, and I'm sure it's probably basic common sense to woodworkers that have bandsaws, but if you're looking into getting one, the blade guard on the bandsaw is not just for a blade guard. The height of the wood or depth of the wood that you're cutting will help with drift on that blade too, because those bearings are closer to the wood. It's going to keep it more in line with your feed rate. So it serves two purposes there.
Yes. That's about all I can think of, unless we've got any more questions over here.
Hey, Russ, can you show us how to fold the blade?
Do what now? I didn't hear you.
Can you show us how to fold the blade properly to put it away?
I put it back on the saw. I ain't gonna take it off.
You got one blade.
Actually, as of right now, yes, I only have one blade. I broke the blade before this one, and due to the fact I went to California, I forgot to order some, so I've got to order. I just realized it today when I went out there. I've got to order because I don't use this thing for anything except resaw. The only blade that I have is this 1/2-inch wood slicer blade, and that's the only blades I keep. I usually keep 3 of them. I had the other one, it broke. I put this one on. Then right after it broke, before I ordered the more of them, I went to California and I just forgot to order them. So Sterling, here, let's everybody. I'll flip over on Sterling and have Sterling present. Everyone, there you go, Sterling. Go ahead, show us how to do it.
Well, basically, all I do is it's like a what do you call it? A jump rope, but I push it down. I'm holding it with both sides, push down and twist, and it brings it into a circle. So you can have it in like that. And I know Steve French done a video on how to do it too, but that's just I'm a meat cutter too. That's the way we've always just flipped it down.
Fantastic.
I always end up with one extra twirl on it, and it always ends up not fitting back in my box again.
Another thing to keep in mind with bandsaws, bandsaw blades, if anyone's a beginner, if you're trying to, set it around and get the thing to collapse on itself, like that, but you do it wrong, you can actually turn the blade inside out.
Yeah.
When you do that, you set the thing on your bandsaw, and the teeth are pointed the wrong direction. So that's something for beginners as well, and I won't tell you how I know that, but it doesn't cut very well that way.
No, it won't. I guarantee you.
If you've been watching the chat section over there, how we got a good response over there, Nick? How's everybody doing?
Let's take a look here. Would you rather resaw on a bandsaw or on a table saw? From Spiritual Splinters Woodshop. Me personally, resawing is basically milling, and most milling operations are done via bandsaw. Typically, you get a smaller kerf, so a higher yield. Bandsaw, yeah, I would go bandsaw all the way if you have a big enough bandsaw.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Go ahead,
There's
Chris.
a way to resaw on a table saw if you want to do it, but like Nick said, you're gonna have a thicker kerf and you're gonna have more wasted material. So if you don't have a bandsaw and you want to do some milling, then you can do it on a table saw. But you're probably going to be limited to a tree that's probably, or a piece that you're milling that's going to be about 6 inches, maybe a little bit more, because your table saw blade only goes so high. A bandsaw, if you have a 14-inch bandsaw, you might be able to get 11 inches. So it's up to you. But I mean, for milling, absolutely, bandsaw.
Well, your typical, as far as I know, your typical homeowner 10-inch type table saw is only good for cutting about the width of a 2x4, about 3.5 inches, or maybe just a little bit more than that. So if you're going to try to resaw on a table saw, you're limited as to how thick the material is that you can resaw. Where on my bandsaw, for instance, I put this riser block in mine. This was only a, here, I'll just turn it around where you can see it. I put this riser block in this. So now I'm capable of a 14-inch bandsaw. I'm capable of ripping or resawing up to 12 inches of wood. You cannot do that on a table saw. Now, if you're going to rip off a bunch of smaller pieces and then glue them up or glue them back together, then yeah, you could use your table saw. But there's a lot of things that I love my table saw for, but resawing is not one of them. I do it all my resawing is done on the bandsaw.
Well, if you don't have a bandsaw and you want to resaw on the table saw, you can. But another thing you can do on the table saw is flip it. Once you do that curve, turn it, flip it, and you'll get twice that width.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You're still with a 10-inch bandsaw or a 10-inch table saw. The blade only sticks up so far, and as far as I know, it's only about a 3.5, 4 inches on a 10-inch table saw that you're capable of ripping through. So yeah, you can do that 3 inches on one side and flip it over and do 3 inches on the other side. Now I actually got 6 inches, but there's no way you're going to cut 12 inches on a table saw. Not thick enough.
No, you're right. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
You just do it on a table saw. Put it in your bench vise and do it with a handsaw the rest of the way.
Yeah, you can do that. You could take off 6 inches and then take a handsaw and cut the other 6 inches through on a 12-inch piece. Yes, you can do that.
Paul King wants to know: does anyone on the panel have any experience with book matching?
With
What?
Well, it plays right into resawing. That's all book matching is. You're taking, you're resawing a board and you're opening it up like a book. But yeah, unfortunately right now I'm limited to a smaller 10-inch bandsaw, so I don't do a whole lot of resawing. Hopefully that'll change in the future sometime. But
yeah, the reason
I do want resawing, but I'm not sure what he's asking. As far as book matching, I mean, because as soon as you cut a piece of wood in half and fold it open, you've got a book match piece.
I think what he's asking is anyone here does have a whole lot of experience with that, resawing and then putting that in their pieces, whether it be panels or keepsake boxes.
Chris Cute's got a great video on resawing on the bandsaw with his jig he made. That'd be a good video to watch. Learn how to make the jig and resaw at the same time.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's honestly, to be honest with you, I don't have any videos out on it, but I have done a lot of resawing where I've book matched a piece just so it would look nice. It's more of, it's not anything that's a necessity. It was more of an appeal piece, because when you take a piece of wood and you book match it and you look at it this way, you've got it has a really nice appearance. And so I've made several boards that I've resawed and have book matched together and joined them, and then made a front on a piece that I was making. But other than that, I don't know what. I hope that answers this question.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, because, like I said, I do when I rip something like it's 12 inches, a piece of hardwood, I use that for scrolling, so I don't end up gluing it together and making anything book matching. I know about it, but I've never done it before.
So somebody had asked in the it was Joseph Poindexter. I have a benchtop bandsaw, but it doesn't have a fence. What are my options? So I just grabbed these little scrap pieces of wood real quick to try and illustrate what I used to do on my bandsaw. But if you get two small blocks, I mean, we're talking, these are just, this is just representation for scale. But if you flip this around and all of a sudden you can clamp that to your bandsaw table, now you have kind of a resaw, a high-end, high-profile fence you can run. But now if you flip it around this way, then you can get that blade guard down, and it actually misses that high point of the fence.
Yep.
And now you get a little bit of a fence for, say, half-inch material, three-quarter-inch material. That's and just a couple of quick clamps, so whether they're the quick grip guys or the F-style short ones or something.
Yep.
And then if it's an aluminum table, don't buy magnets.
That's a good tip, Nick.
Yeah. that escapes many woodworkers, apparently.
What I was going to show is this is the fence that I made myself for my bandsaw before I bought the Craig, and so I just took a piece of 1x4 and then put a piece of 1x4 down here, and just took one of your regular bar clamps and slotted these pieces to let it fall down inside, so that this piece would hang over to catch the edge over here of the table saw.
Oh, I hate this computer that it does that. Every time I touch the screen, because it's touch screen, it ends up taking it off. So it would end up catching this edge over here, and then this piece, which is your adjustable piece, would catch this edge over here, and that's what I used for years for my bandsaw. 1 4-foot bar clamp that I ended up cutting off. I think this was like a 3-footer, so I cut it off so it wouldn't stick out so far. 2 or 3 pieces of 1 4. The clamp, this fence worked great. The problem that it had was I had a hard time once I started tightening it down that I had to constantly take my little ruler here and check to make sure that it was square, because it ultimately wanted to go off track to the left and to the right a little bit. So it was kind of a pain. It took me a second or two to get this thing straightened up. But I mean, it worked great. And then what I did was I took a piece of plywood and I cut, would fit underneath here, and I would just screw it to the side of this and use it. If I was going to cut 12-inch pieces, use this for the small pieces. Matter of fact, you see the screw holes along here that I had as to where I screw the plywood on for the extra upper part of the fence. The Craig fence, man, there's no question about it. I moved it up here to within 1/4 of an inch, lock it down,
once I got it straight and the setup on it, it's straight 1/4 inch. Boom. I ain't gonna mess with it. I don't have to pull this out and lay it here to keep trying to adjust it.
They're saying the picture's stuck on me for whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, I haven't picked my nose in at least.
All right. So if it was stuck on you today, let me show the little fence on it real quick one more time. So what I did was, this is a Harbor Freight bar clamp that I cut off. I think it was about a 3 foot. This is a piece of 1x4. These were pieces of 1x4 that I cut from a triangle. I slotted them so the clamp would fit down in it. You want the clamp to fit below on both ends so that it will go over the top. So I can do this without touching my computer again. So that this will lock in on this side. And then this will lock in on this side and just tighten this down to pull the fence into place. It's just a pain to keep it square to the blade if you want. So we're running way over time, guys, and I don't mind that. Don't get me wrong. It's just I know how people can get kind of sticklers as if it's over a 1 hour show. They don't like it, but we've gone over some really great things. I want to bring up one more thing that I've had so many people tell me that because of the kerf of the blade, the way the blade cuts, that you have to change the angle of your fence in order to fit that kerf the way that that blade cuts, because they do not cut straight on. All I got to say about that is bull hockey.
Yeah, I agree.
This fence is set in 90 degrees to the blade. Okay, it's exactly the same distance here that is back here. I do not compensate for the kerf of the blade or for the angle that the blade is supposed to cut off of. If you set this blade or this bandsaw up with the way that I set it up, it will cut dead on. If I put this on a 1/4 inch and push that material through, I'm going to have a straight 1/4 inch cut all the way through. I do. So I just wanted to point that out real quick because I have a lot of people say that, oh, this has got to be this end of the fence down here has got to be an 1/8 inch back or something. Bull.
Yeah, there's even YouTube videos
from the table
showing how you set the drift on that.
Yes, drift. That was the word I'm looking for.
I agree with you, Russ. If you have it set up properly, it should cut straight. You know, maybe they're trying to push too fast or whatever, but there are YouTube videos on there showing you how to set that angle of the drift.
I know we went over, and I'm sorry for that, guys. I don't mind going over once again. Let's just real quick before we get to the end, and I want to make this kind of interesting. I'm going to have every time on the end of my show, before we end the show, have what we call wood shop or workshop confessions. Okay, so anybody want to start, or do I have to pull you out? A wood shop.
I don't even know what it means.
What that means is something that you messed up, screwed up, something you did in your wood shop that after you did it this week or the last few weeks, you said, "Dang, I wished I hadn't done that," or you could change it over. Anybody got some wood shop confessions they want to talk about?
Yeah, I cut my thumb on my table saw. Okay, let's move on.
I knew, Chris, that you were going to bring that up. I knew that you were going to bring that up.
Oh, man, I don't care that I did it. I did a dumbass friggin' thing, and that's what happened. I mean, that's my confession. If you want one, you got it.
Okay. When the last time I used my bandsaw, when I said I changed the blade before I went to California, and I knew better than this, I just put this Craig fence on here, and I was cutting something really, really thin. And as soon as I got through cutting, that last little piece kind of like got stuck right there. And I'll be danged if I didn't reach up to try to push that little piece through. And that bandsaw, just as pretty as could be, went right through the index finger and my fingernail. And I didn't go deep. It was just a real nick or whatever. But I was thinking to myself, well, if that wasn't about the stupidest thing, Clarity, you've ever done in your entire life. So there's my confession. Nick, I know you're laughing over there. You've got to have some.
Well, you said you got a nick in your finger. I don't know why we got to bring me up into the No, I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and say I'm perfect because I've made plenty of mistakes, but I'm trying to think in the last week or so. I don't know. I don't have running water in my shop, so what I did was I took an old sriracha bottle and I put water in that, and now the water that comes out of it smells like sriracha. I didn't think.
John Schaffner, what's your woodshop confession?
I have a really dumbass thing that I did this week, and let this be a lesson to others. I was out in my shop. I had a project that I was working on that really had to be done and out of there like Wednesday, and I was spraying the lacquer, and I put like one coat on, and I sat down, put another coat on, and sat down. By the time I got to the third coat, I was so damn sick from snuffing that lacquer that last 3 days I've been out of the shop. It's literally sick and can't breathe because of that lacquer. So let that be a lesson to everybody else. Use it in a well-ventilated area.
Oh, yeah. All right, Sterling.
Well, the last mishap I had was I was doing a CNC project, and in between that cutting, I went to go cut the grass for a little bit and come back, and my CNC had lost a wheel on the Z-axis and broke the bit.
Now that's all the damage it did to it, was it?
Well, that's right before I rolled it down to the shed after that, so I don't know. I got to work on it. I got some more work to do on the programming of it. So,
Russ Meadows?
I don't have one. I don't make mistakes.
I don't make mistakes.
I don't do that much to make a mistake. But I tell you what, I have learned something from y'all, because y'all were talking about the bandsaw and the table saw, and I don't have a bandsaw, so I said, y'all hit it right on when you said you could use that table saw, but it, like you said, it doesn't go far enough. So when I was cutting some of that cherry for this urn I was making, I'm left with about an inch in the middle that I can't get off. And I didn't have a handsaw handy, so I got my old grinder out, and I was grinding on that thing. I almost cut my dang hand off trying to get that thing ground down smooth. I thought, oh, no more of this. I need a bandsaw.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got we missed John Cousins. What's your?
I really don't have anything better than you guys.
That's all right. I understand if you don't want to tell on yourself.
Oh no, I'm not telling on myself. I just very rarely make mistakes in the shop, as far as I know. My wife might have some things other than that to say, but I don't know.
Dave, did we get to you? Did you confess already?
No, I made a little mistake on my CNC. Actually, when I was doing the little thing for Sterling's pallet upcycle challenge, I had the Z set too low, and the thing took off and put a big gouge in there, and it's like using like a 1/4-inch bit. So what I did is I took another piece of pallet wood that was pretty much the same color. It was that gray, weathered stuff, and used my CNC to cut a slot out and glued it in. And then when I showed that at the end of the video, I just made sure I didn't have the camera close enough where anybody could really pick it up.
Russ, we just had one in the comment section that I thought was funny and worth mentioning.
I'm reading it too, but go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, Spiritual Splinters Woodshop said, I used temporary spray glue and thought it was spray lacquer. I bet you he sat there for like 5 days going, well, how come this finish is still sticky?
Nice job.
Nice job, Mark.
There, by the way, that made me laugh. That was a good one.
This happened to me. This has been like 6 months ago or whatever. But I bought some the new Rust-Oleum lacquer, which comes in the Rust-Oleum can, which is typically like the other Rust-Oleum cans. So dumb dumb me, I stuck them on the shelves and didn't even think one day, and I reached up and just finished this nice, beautiful piece of maple as a scroll saw project. Reached up and grabbed the can of spray clear lacquer and shook it up real good. Reached over and started spraying it, and I just went, I grabbed the black lacquer, not the clear lacquer.
Oh.
Hey, I don't mind painting my projects black. There's nothing.
Yeah. Trust me, real quick, I moved that burned clear lacquer away from everything else so I could tell the difference.
Yep.
So, all right, guys, we went way over, and I'm sorry that we went way over. What time is it? Wow, we almost went 30 minutes over. I really want to try to keep these shows down to an hour because that's everybody wants them to stay an hour or so. But tonight I had so many things to talk about in the beginning about the contest and everything. And no, there's not going to be a contest tonight. I know people have been putting on here, bandsaw's red, your bandsaw's green. No, I'm going to announce the contest when you least expect it. You have to watch my show to win. Okay? That's just plain and simple. You have to watch to win. So, but it will be at least once a month, maybe a little bit more if I can get some sponsors to kick in and help me along. It'll be at least once a month there's a chance to win. So, that being said, anybody else, anything else before we close?
Your bandsaw's green.
Bandsaw's green.
But if I win, I'm going to buy some spray paint and paint it yellow.
I don't know how many people we've had watching, 18 watching right now. Wow, fantastic.
No, nobody puts baby in a corner.
But I really, really appreciate everybody being on the panel tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris and Dave and John and Nick and Russ and Sterling. Thank you all for being here. Thank everybody. 18 people watching. I went to 16, so people know I'm closing. They're turning it off. So thanks for everybody being on the panel. I'm sorry tonight was and I was in a position that I worked on the bandsaw, so I couldn't keep up with the chat as much. Nick did a very good job. Thank you, Nick. But other than that, I'm going to close out. And remember one thing. Keep the blade on the line.